year is 1946. Little Maya leaves to pick a bouquet of wildflowers for her mother. Suddenly, a light appears above the girl and she vanishes. The same thing happens to soldier Richard in 1951, old millionaire Orson in 1979, and boys Kyle and Sean in 2001, along with more than 4,000 other people. Present day. Sitting in the hospital next to Kyle's bed, Tom listens to a news report about an asteroid that will pass very close to Earth. Tom's wife, Linda, enters the room. The 3 years that the boy has been in a coma have been hard on her, and she wants to start a new life. Department of Homeland Security in Seattle. Diana is urgently called to work, where she is informed that the asteroid has changed course, increased speed, and is heading straight for Earth. Several countries launch missiles, hoping to destroy the strange object, but people prepare for a catastrophe, calling their loved ones to say goodbye. The asteroid begins to slow down as soon as it enters the atmosphere. Diana calculates the point where the object is going to land. It turns out to be very close to the department. Hundreds of people arrive on the scene: rescue services, journalists, police, and FBI agents. Before their eyes, a sphere descends from the sky. The sphere suddenly disappears, leaving behind a dense fog from which 4,400 people emerge, looking around in surprise. Among them are soldier Richard, the old millionaire, little Maya, and all the others. They all look the same as they did on the day of their disappearance, despite it happening in different years of the 20th century. Tom leaves his son and goes to Ryland to get permission to return to service, but Dennis is in no hurry to agree. Understanding that Tom has a personal interest, his nephew is among the returned. Finally, Ryland agrees, and despite Diana's displeasure, pairs Tom with her, assigning them to examine the returned 4,400 people. Sean is called for an interview over the loudspeaker. Seeing his uncle, the boy is pleased to be able to talk to a family member, but it turns out that for all 3 years, Tom was convinced that his nephew had harmed Kyle, causing him to fall into a coma and had run away. Sitting in the waiting room, Richard meets Lily, who turns out to be the granddaughter of the girl the soldier was in love with in '51. A month and a half passes, and the district court supports the demand to release the detainees. Diana disagrees and demands to isolate the crowd from the public, but the 4,400 people are released. Of them, 130 don't know where to go. Among them is little Maya, who has no relatives left. Richard and Lily say goodbye, and the woman prepares to return to the family she hasn't seen in 11 years. But among the greeters, Lily does not see her husband. The girl makes it home, but her husband Brian asks her to leave, announcing that he is married and there is no place for her in their lives. Orson finds his wife in a nursing home, and it is hard for him to hold back tears, thinking about how much time he has lost. Richard arrives in St. Louis at his old address, but now he finds a homeless shelter there. Tom takes Diana to a party organized in Sean's honor, so his partner can see that the returned are no different from other people. Leaving his colleague briefly, Tom goes outside to Sean to apologize and say that he is glad he has returned. During the conversation, a bird falls nearby, having crashed into the glass. But as soon as Sean takes it in his hands, the bird comes back to life and flies away. Maya is taken in by a family, and as she says goodbye to Diana, the girl says they will see each other very soon, which greatly surprises the agent. Orson returns to the company he once founded, but his partner refuses to give him a job. The foster parents give Maya a room, and the girl puts her shoes on a chair, saying that her sneakers might get wet on the floor. This surprises the couple, and they don't understand what she means. The first night of freedom is difficult for everyone. Richard spends time in a cafe, Sean receives threats written on his car, Lily wanders the streets not knowing where to go, and in Maya's foster parents' house, a pipe bursts from the washing machine, flooding everything with water. Orson goes to his former partner's house. The cowardly businessman decides not to open the door, but when the old man shakes the gate's grate, the whole house begins to shake, and the windows shatter. Moments later, Orson starts screaming, and from this, Adam's head explodes and the traitor falls to the floor. Sean returns to school after a long absence, but it's tough for the boy. His peers don't want to accept the returned. Orson also feels like an outcast. He is not charged, but he is not released either. When Diana starts reading the man's testimony, he gets angry again, and everything around starts shaking. Maya arrives with her guardians at the cemetery to visit her parents. The girl is glad that they rest in a beautiful place, but she also promises her foster parents that their cemetery will be just as nice. Lily faces a new shock. She goes to the doctor with nausea and finds out that she is expecting a child. Finishing his business, Orson hurries to the nursing home, but he is met with an empty bed. Learning that his wife has passed away, the old man wreaks havoc. Lily meets with her husband and tells him about the pregnancy, but of course, he denies any involvement. Additionally, he refuses to let her see their daughter, warning that he will file a lawsuit if she violates this. One of the boys keeps harassing Sean, and Sean pins the bully to the ground, draining the life out of him with his hand. The boy is saved, but this frightens the gathered crowd even more. Maya's foster parents are scared. The man says he no longer wants to see the strange girl in his house, and without even hearing the conversation, she packs her things. The couple brings Maya back to the quarantine station, and the would-be mother advises her to be more careful with her predictions. Richard finds Lily in the park. The couple goes to a cafe, and Lily tells her friend about the baby she will soon have. In turn, Richard tells the girl about the romance he had with her grandmother. Tom and Diana arrive at the house where one of the returned is hiding. Orson doesn't believe the agents and asks them to leave him alone, starting to destroy everything again. To calm the old man down, Tom has to fire a shot. The returned man is taken to the hospital, and Ryland orders his subordinates to find out what other talents the travelers have to prevent new tragedies. Learning about what happened, Sean recalls the revived bird and the classmate who almost stopped breathing. To test his assumptions, he goes to his cousin's room and briefly brings him out of the coma. Carl, one of the returned, goes back to work at his fish shop. Walking with his wife Grace after work, the man reminisces about his past life. Not far from the couple, some youths are playing baseball, and Carl doesn't even understand how the ball ends up in his hand. Grace warns her husband that the local park has become dangerous, but despite this, the man decides to walk through it late at night. And Carl is attacked by hooligans. He is willing to give them everything he has, but instead, he decides to use his new abilities to teach the hooligans a lesson. Tom and Diana visit Maya. After her return, many staff members have complained about the girl's predictions, and Ryland asks his colleagues to deal with this. Richard rents an apartment for Lily and her child, and the girl asks her friend to stay with them. Suddenly, Lily feels unwell and hurries outside. Carl tells his wife about what happened and happily announces that he will revive the park and make it safe again. The doctor calls Tom and Linda and informs them of a brief surge of brain activity in their son and new chances. Tom learns that on the night when the monitors showed a spike, Sean visited Kyle. The agent goes to his nephew, but he doesn't admit to waking his cousin. The agents visit the department that deals with hypotheses, but so far the only hypothesis is aliens. At Lily's request, the couple rents another apartment, and the girl is so happy that she can't help but kiss her friend. Kyle can't wait for the morning and heads to the park at night to start cleaning it up. The man manages not only to paint a bench, but also to save a girl from hooligans. Diana visits Maya in the laboratory, and the girl asks the agent to take her home. But Diana asks for time to think. The girl rescued in the park gives testimony to Tom and Diana. She describes a superhero and recalls that he smelled of fish. Meanwhile, Lily still hopes to reunite with her daughter and watches her through the window in the evenings. Suddenly, the woman feels unwell, and this reveals her presence, leading to her being arrested. Richard goes to Lily's ex-husband and asks him to withdraw the statement, promising that the girl will never bother him again. That evening, Lily is released, and Richard arranges a romantic dinner for her. The man is ready to do anything for her, and a romance develops between the young people. Nikki visits Sean in the garage and accidentally burns her hand, but the guy heals the burn with a touch. This couple's meeting also ends with a kiss, despite Dennis asking his brother not to get involved. Carl continues his night raids in the park, but by this time, Tom and Diana track him down and arrive at his wife Grace's house. The woman leads the agents to show where her husband is, and the group finds the man seriously injured. Tom calls for an ambulance, but it's too late. In memory of the returned man, locals come to the park to clean it up and complete his work. Diana goes to the lab at night and takes Maya with her. Tom also goes to the hospital. Kyle has been transferred to the ICU because he has developed serious brain problems. It turns out that among the returned was a serial killer, Oliver Knox, and recently, new victims have appeared in the city. The agents visit Knox, but the man, of course, denies his involvement in the crime. Sean can't stop thinking about his abilities, and at night, he goes to the place where the glowing sphere recently took him. But Sean isn't the only one visiting the base of the mountain. Several dozen return to gather there, coping with their adaptation to the new world. Millionaire Jordan Kohler, who was also among the missing, arrives. He tells the gathered crowd that the whole world is against them, and he is ready to extend a helping hand. Jordan invites everyone to his mansion to discuss how they will live from now on. Diana inspects the site where the recent victim was found, and the agent manages to find a fresh fingerprint of the criminal. The identity of the serial killer is quickly established, but he cannot be caught. The sheriff admits he should apologize to Knox for the false accusation. The nanny Diana hired for Maya runs away, asking not to be called again. The girl's predictions continue to scare people. In the city center, a strange guy tries to step in front of a truck, but fails and then loudly claims that he is guilty of the mass crimes. The agents arrive at the station, and Tom says something strange is happening. Neither this guy nor the one who ended his life could have been the past maniacs. According to the federal agent, Knox is responsible for all the terrible stories, and it remains only to understand how he does it. The returned gather at the rich man's house. Learning about Lily's pregnancy, the millionaire pays special attention to her and Richard, and he even offers the man a job, knowing that no one will hire him. Another letter, allegedly from the serial killer, arrives at the police. Tom understands that all the leads point to Knox, but he can't take him without evidence. Sean goes to the place where he was abducted and remembers that on that night something wanted to take Kyle. In the park, another maniac hunts the returned, but the agents manage to intercept him. The federals head for Knox, but the criminal is not at home, and instead, his colleagues find an altar dedicated to the victims and a note with the name of the girl who was saved. At this very time, Knox is in Felicia's apartment, but the cops manage to arrive before the psychopath carries out his plan. Knox is placed in a glass cell, but even there he tries to do evil. Only the soundproof glass prevents him from doing so. Tom arrives at his son's bedside and sees Sean reviving Kyle. Sitting on the bed, the boy recognizes his father. Kyle is discharged home, but he doesn't recognize his room or his belongings, causing his parents to worry. Tom goes to his nephew to thank him for bringing his son back and asks the boy not to tell anyone about what happened. Lily and Richard return home after a walk, and Lily feels unwell at the door. This saves the family from disaster. Someone had rigged their apartment door with explosives. Tom and Diana examine the crime scene, and the woman tries to get information from her partner about Sean's connection to Kyle's awakening, but the agent remembers his nephew's request and says nothing. The returned millionaire gifts Richard and Lily a house in a gated community he built specifically for all 4,400 people. Tom finds Kyle tearing up photographs. The boy pushes his father away and confesses that everyone seems like strangers to him. The millionaire's community fills up, but the agents try to convince Jordan that gathering everyone in one place is too dangerous. Nevertheless, the millionaire is determined to go ahead, and Richard, now the head of security, plans to help him. Diana arrives at school to pick up Maya, and the principal asks her not to bring the girl back. Everyone is afraid of being targeted if a hunt begins for her. Noticing her guardian's concern, Maya reassures her, promising that someone will fix everything soon. Another returned florist, Mary, dies. The number of victims among the 4,400 scares the agents, and the situation becomes increasingly serious. Nikki breaks up with Danny, and Sean decides to take advantage of the situation and invites the girl on a date. A man from Washington arrives at the department and, learning about the agent's connections to members of the 4,400, hints at their removal from the case. Linda asks Tom to check on Kyle, and the man finds his son doing something strange, marking a map the boy says he is looking for himself. Sean takes Nikki to the lakeside, where the sphere dropped him off with the other returned, and the couple spends a pleasant time there. The agents find a laboratory where substances for eliminating the returned were created, but the perpetrators manage to escape. The federals find out that the criminals are the brothers of one of Knox's victims, and now they are heading to Sean's house. The trail turns out to be false, and the criminals, escaping pursuit, reach the millionaire's community. The security service and Tom try to stop the van filled with explosives, and they manage to do so seconds before a disaster. Kyle continues to lose his mind and eventually declares that he is an outsider and not who they think he is. The family takes the boy back to the hospital, hoping he will get help. All this time, the young man flips through channels, not explaining what he is looking for. Tom steps out of the hospital for a moment, and during this time, agents from Washington arrive and take the boy away despite Linda's pleas. Upon learning of this, Tom doesn't hold back with his colleague and demands to be given his son, but the planted agent doesn't disclose where Kyle is being held. Lily learns at a checkup that her baby has some kind of genetic anomaly, and the doctor orders a series of tests. Richard accidentally overhears Jordan's secretary's conversation and learns that he regularly calls Lily's doctor. By deception, the security guard obtains his boss's call logs to check something. The suspicions are confirmed, and Richard visits the doctor to find out why she reports everything about Lily to Jordan after each visit. It turns out that Richard is most likely the father of Lily's child. Diana manages to find out where Kyle is being held, and she and Tom plan to free the boy and hide him in a rented house with Linda. In the evening, the colleagues prepare for the mission, and Maya, wishing her guardian an easy task, says they will find Kyle and with him all the answers. The friends break into the laboratory and free Kyle, who gives them an address to take him to urgently. Tom tries to take his son to the hideout, but Kyle insists on going to the beach from which Sean was once abducted, so the agent has to comply. The millionaire summons Lily and shows her old newspaper clippings accusing Richard of attacking young women. After talking to her husband, Lily understands why Jordan showed her this, and she asks Richard to leave the community as soon as possible. Danny learns about his brother's affair with Nikki and, coming home, tries to confront Sean in front of their mother. Not wanting to harm his brother, Sean simply lays a hand on him, and Danny almost passes out, causing even their mother to look at the returned as a monster. Jordan tries to stop the fugitives and grabs Lily, but as soon as his hand touches the woman's belly, he immediately feels unwell. Yet, watching the car drive away, he still says he will take the child. To the millionaire's fortune, Sean arrives at the community, talks about his abilities and problems, and asks for a chance to stay. Tom brings his son to the beach, and the Federals arrive there too. Before his father's eyes, Kyle emits a bright beam of light that shoots straight into the sky. Outwardly, the men seem paralyzed by the bright light, but inside, they feel wonderful. Standing by the water, Tom hears a foreign voice from Kyle's body. The agent is convinced that this is the work of aliens, but the voice reveals an unexpected truth. They are actually ordinary people from the future. In that time, humanity is dying out and needed people to survive. Now, all the returned have a task to change and save the world with the abilities they have received. The voice doesn't finish. One of the agents shoots and hits Kyle. The beam breaks off and the men fall to the ground. Kyle takes his last breaths and Tom begins to say goodbye to him. But light leaves the boy's body and a minute later, he comes to himself, now as the real Kyle. 6 months later, Lily and Richard live in a small house at the foot of the mountains. And on one ordinary day, the baby is about to be born. Driving to the hospital, the couple doesn't notice the trees bowing along the road. This concludes the first season. Friends, would you be interested in a summary of the second season? Please write in the comments.